Right now, we are tracking one of the most dangerous heat setups of the entire summer. And at the same time, a fresh round of severe weather is getting ready to fire up across the middle of the country. It's Friday, July 31st, 2026, the 212th day of the year. And we're going to map this out day by day, starting with tonight and stretching all the way into the middle of August. Somewhere in this timeline, we've got Phoenix and Las Vegas both flirting with all-time record highs, Death Valley pushing well past 120, and a multi-day severe weather threat that's going to keep shifting across the plains and into the Midwest. So let's not waste any time and get right into it. Tonight into early Saturday, storms are already firing up across parts of Nebraska and South Dakota. And this is really just the opening act of what's going to be a stretch of active weather across the northern and central plains. We've got a slight risk of severe weather in place for tomorrow, covering roughly 8 million people from Rapid City down through North Platte and into western Kansas. The main concern is going to be large hail, some of it up to golf ball size, along with scattered damaging wind gusts in the 60 to 70 mile per hour range. There is a low-end tornado threat as well, mainly in the late afternoon and evening hours, where we could see a supercell or two manage to organize before storms start clustering together. If you've got outdoor plans in that corridor tomorrow afternoon, just keep an eye on the sky, because these things can go from clear skies to a warning in a pretty short window once the cap breaks. But honestly, the story that's dominating my attention right now isn't the severe weather, it's the heat. We are looking at a heat dome that is building over the desert southwest with a strength that's honestly a little startling for this time of year. Phoenix is forecast to push toward 116 or 117 degrees by Saturday and Sunday, and there's a real shot at flirting with the all-time record high for the city, which sits at 122. I'm not saying we get there, but the ridge aloft is strong enough that I wouldn't be shocked if we get within a few degrees of it. Las Vegas is in a similar boat, with highs expected to climb into the 115 to 118 range, putting it within striking distance of its own all-time record. And then there's Death Valley, which is forecast to approach 128 degrees by the weekend, which would put it right up against some of the hottest temperatures ever reliably recorded on the planet. What really worries me about this particular heat wave, and I say this every time we get one of these setups, but it bears repeating, is the overnight lows. This ridge is strong enough and the air mass dry enough that we're not going to get much relief after dark. Overnight lows in Phoenix and Las Vegas are likely to stay in the mid to upper 90s, and in the Mojave Desert, some spots may not even drop below the century mark overnight. That means your body never actually gets a break from the heat, and that's when heat-related illness becomes a much bigger danger, especially for elderly folks, outdoor workers, and anyone without reliable air conditioning. Please check on your neighbors, drink water before you're thirsty, and never, under any circumstances, leave a kid or a pet in a parked car, even for a couple of minutes, because in this kind of heat, a car interior can become lethal in under 10 minutes. This heat isn't just staying bottled up in the southwest either. By Sunday and into Monday, that dome is going to start expanding eastward into the southern and central plains, which means cities like Dallas, Oklahoma City, and even Wichita are going to see highs climbing into the low to mid-100s, with heat index values potentially reaching 105 to 110 in the more humid spots. This is the kind of heat that turns a normal summer afternoon into a genuine health hazard, and it's going to be layered right on top of our severe weather threat, which makes forecasting the exact placement of storms a little trickier than usual, because that heat and humidity is also going to be fuel for whatever storms do manage to fire. Speaking of which, let's get back to the severe weather side of things, because Sunday is looking like it could be a more significant day across the central plains. We've got a disturbance ejecting out of the Rockies that's going to interact with all that heat and humidity building at the surface, and early indications are that we could see an enhanced risk of severe weather introduced for parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. The combination of strong instability, given how hot and humid it's going to be, along with increasing wind shear ahead of this disturbance, is going to create an environment that's capable of producing supercells with large hail, damaging winds, and a real risk of a few tornadoes, possibly even a strong one if a storm can stay discreet long enough. I'll have more confidence on the exact placement of this risk in tomorrow's update once we get some better short-range model data in, but right now, if you live anywhere from Wichita down through Oklahoma City, this is a day to keep on your radar. By Monday, this system continues to push east, and I think we'll be looking at another round of potentially strong to severe storms, somewhere from Missouri into Arkansas and the Mississippi Valley. There's also a decent chance we see some flash flooding concerns pop up here, because if these storms train over the same areas, which is possible given the slow movement of the front, we could see 3 to 5 inch rainfall totals in isolated spots. That's the kind of rain that can turn a normal creek into a real problem in a hurry, especially in areas that have already seen a wet summer. Meanwhile, That heat dome out west isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's going to be building in strength through the early part of next week. By Tuesday and Wednesday, we could be talking about triple-digit heat, stretching from California through Arizona, Nevada, and into Utah, with some daily records likely falling, both for daytime highs and, once again, for those uncomfortably warm overnight lows. I do think we'll start to see this heat nose into the northern and central Rockies as well, which raises some concern for fire weather, especially in areas that are already running dry heading into August. Gusty winds combined with low humidity and high temperatures is exactly the recipe that fire weather forecasters watch closely. So if you're in Montana, Idaho, or parts of Wyoming, it's worth paying attention to any red flag warnings that get issued over the coming days. Now, as we move into the middle of next week, the severe weather threat is going to shift again, and I think Wednesday and Thursday could bring another round of storms somewhere across the Ohio Valley or Tennessee Valley, though I'll be honest, the exact placement is still a bit uncertain this far out. What I am fairly confident about is that we're going to continue seeing this pattern where the heat dome out west essentially pushes the storm track farther north and east than it would sit in a more typical summer pattern. And that's going to keep funneling rounds of severe weather across the Midwest and into the eastern half of the country through the first week of August. I also want to touch briefly on the tropics, because while there's nothing organized right now that I'm overly concerned about, some of the longer range models have been hinting at increased activity in the Atlantic as we move into the second week of August. It's too early to put any real confidence behind this, but given how warm the ocean waters are right now, it wouldn't surprise me if we start talking about our next named storm sometime in the coming 2 weeks. I'll keep an eye on this and update you as things develop. Let's jump ahead now to the extended outlook, because I think this is honestly the most important part of today's forecast. Looking at the first full week of August, from around the 3rd through the 9th, models are in pretty strong agreement that this heat dome over the southwest is not just going to persist, it's going to intensify. We could be looking at a multi-day stretch where Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Death Valley are all threatening daily and possibly all-time records simultaneously. I want to stress that this isn't just an inconvenience. This is a genuinely dangerous stretch of weather for anyone spending extended time outdoors in that region, whether that's hikers, outdoor workers, or people without reliable access to air conditioning. If you have travel plans to the southwest in the first couple weeks of August, I'd strongly encourage adjusting outdoor activities to the very early morning hours and avoiding peak heat entirely between roughly noon and 6 p.m. As that heat dome expands, I do expect it to nose into the southern plains and eventually into the Mississippi Valley by the second week of August, which means places like Dallas, Little Rock, and even Memphis could be dealing with an extended stretch of dangerous heat, layered with the humidity that this part of the country typically has in early August. That combination of heat and humidity often produces some of the highest heat index values we see all year, sometimes 10 to 15 degrees above the actual air temperature, and that's exactly the kind of environment where heat-related illness becomes a serious public health concern. On the flip side, the northern plains and upper Midwest look like they'll get some relief periodically as these cold fronts continue to sweep through, though each one of those fronts is also going to be a potential trigger for another round of severe weather before temperatures moderate behind it. This kind of back and forth pattern, heat building, then a front sweeping through with severe storms, then heat rebuilding again, is a pretty classic summer pattern, but the intensity of the heat we're dealing with this year, especially out west, is running well above normal for this point in the season. I also want to mention the drought and fire weather angle here, because as this pattern continues, we're going to see soil moisture continue to drop across parts of the northern plains and into the western Great Lakes. If we don't get some meaningful rainfall in these areas over the next couple of weeks, I do think we could see rapid drought. Intensification, which historically tends to snowball once it gets going in the middle of summer. This also ties back into the fire weather concern out west, because dry ground plus hot temperatures plus any wind event is exactly the setup that leads to explosive fire growth. So this is something I'll be watching closely heading into August. So if you want the two things to really take away from today's forecast, here they are. First, we've got a multi-day, and honestly multi-week, stretch of dangerous heat building across the desert southwest that's going to expand eastward into the plains over the coming days, with the potential for numerous daily and even all-time heat records to fall, especially in Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Death Valley. Please take this seriously, stay hydrated, check on vulnerable neighbors and family members, and avoid unnecessary outdoor exposure during peak afternoon hours. And second, we've got a continued threat of severe weather rippling across the central and eastern United States over the next several days, with Sunday and Monday looking like the higher-end days across the plains and into the Mississippi Valley, bringing the risk of large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes. I'll be back tomorrow with an updated look at both of these stories, including any changes to the severe weather risk for Sunday and the latest on just how extreme this heat is going to get out west over the weekend. Things can shift quickly this time of year, so make sure you check back before any of this weather actually arrives where you live. Thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of these updates, and let me know in the comments what the weather's looking like where you are right now. Stay safe, stay cool, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.